You're watching Business Incorporated live on Channels Television. Coming up in the next 25 minutes. Military rulers in Gabon threaten to arrest heads of businesses who've collected money and failed to deliver projects. Nairobi Stock Exchange investors reap $166 million from small cap stocks. Plus, Egyptian stocks rallied to fresh highs this week, even as tensions escalated in the Middle East. Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's kick off as usual with the markets now starting on the African continent. We see at intraday, major equities markets are in the red there. Red is the color right behind me. The NGX marginally down about 0.06%. The South Africa index, though, giving up gains from yesterday, 0.93% down. And we see the EGX 30, 1.99%. We know Egyptian stocks have rallied to fresh highs this week, actually, even as tensions escalated in the Middle East, as local investors are pouring in to hedge against expectations of another currency devaluation, record inflation. We see Egypt has devalued the pound 3 times since early 2022, with the currency losing almost half its value against the dollar. That's according to the IMF there. We see the Kenya Stock Exchange there, 0.02% for the Nairobi Stock Exchange. That was a close for yesterday. Let's take it to the Middle East now. We see Middle Eastern markets actually in the red at intraday. Today we see the Abu Dhabi index 0.39% down. Dubai index biggest downer there, 1.71%. Elsewhere in the region, we see Saudi Arabia and the Qatari index also down 0.55%. The Qatari index down 1.54%. So red is the color in the Middle East right now at intraday. And talking about the Middle East, let's take it to London right now, still about the Israel-Hamas conflict. Let's talk to Juliana. Great to have you, Juliana. So we see Rishi Sunak has landed in Israel ahead of the meeting with Netanyahu. Tell us about what to expect here.
Yeah, good afternoon, Laddie. That's right. I've actually got a statement which has just been sent out by a spokesperson at Downing Street, basically saying that the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, did meet with his Israeli counterpart, Benjamin Netanyahu, this morning in Tel Aviv, where the two leaders gave a joint press conference. The Prime Minister expressed his deepest condolences from the British people, of course, for the terrible loss of life that occurred nearly 2 weeks ago, which has kicked off this horrific war in the region. And he doubled down on the British sentiment, which is that Israel has the right to self-defense. There was a key terminology, though, which we haven't seen prior from Rishi Sunak, which is respecting international law. Now, we know that there have been a series of major protests in the Arab world, but not just in the Arab world, also across major European cities, including in this city, London, with many of its citizens standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Palestine. And I think what happened in the hospital in Gaza on Tuesday night has definitely taken this war into a very deep concern. So it was interesting to see that whilst the Prime Minister, of course, stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel, they are starting to push up rhetoric about what's happening in Palestine. Now, Britons are caught up in this horrific incident. There are, I believe, at least 10 Britons still missing, feared dead. Just yesterday, it was announced that a 7th Briton had been confirmed dead. She was a very young lady. I believe she was 12 years old. So there are several reasons as to why Rishi Sunak, alongside James Cleverly, are in the region. Containment appears to be the major vocal point, but then also trying to reassure some sort of safe exit out of Rafah, which is the only border that Palestine has with Egypt, which has remained closed. There have been people, particularly dual nationals that have been there for days without access to food or water. So we know that Rishi Sunak has just finished speaking with Benjamin Netanyahu. I believe he is now going to be heading to Riyadh, where he will meet with the Saudi Crown Prince bin Salman. You'll remember, Laddie, we discussed a couple of weeks ago on your show that the Crown Prince was actually supposed to be coming to the UK for a pretty historic visit, the first visit he would have had in the UK since 2017, before the murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the hands of Saudi agents. So this is a very, very tense moment. The war has reached a critical juncture. We're not sure if there are going to be ground defences, but the Prime Minister at lunchtime making it pretty clear that Britain stands shoulder to shoulder with Israel.
Well, we'll keep tracking that visit, and we're definitely hoping for de-escalation right there in the Middle East. But to some other cherry news now, see, even though it's lunchtime, we see the cost of a full English breakfast fell for the third time in 5 months. I guess, Juliana, you're spending less for breakfast.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I wish I had time for breakfast. It's not so easy when you've got three young children. But yeah, this is an interesting story, one from Bloomberg, basically just putting together and adding up the cost of items which have fallen significantly as grocery prices ease in this country. Now, a full English breakfast, it's a shame I don't have one here behind the desk to show people, but I'm sure you've seen it depending on where you go. In a full English breakfast, you've got chips, hash brown, mushrooms, bacon, sausages, beans, and of course the staple item, eggs. And I think what Bloomberg have done is they've added all these items up, and they're like, right, it is so much cheaper. And I think that just goes to show that some of the wranglings by the Parliamentary Select Committee and Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has actually gotten into the heads of bosses from Britain's biggest grocers. They were hauled in front of Parliament to explain why prices weren't trickling down, and they certainly have been. We have started to see a fall in prices, so people are saving more, but they're only saving more this year, because I was explaining this to Innie yesterday on Biz Inc. That when you compare grocery price inflation to where it was 2 years ago, it's 26% higher. So this year we may have started witnessing falls in the cost of our staple grocery items. It's still much higher than it was before the pandemic. So there's still a long way to go. But hey, you know, if you're a fan of a full English breakfast, or you have time, which of course we don't have time for that. I think I barely have time for a coffee, which is very expensive in London. But yeah, very interesting and a bit of light relief in very dark times.
Right. Hopefully we can make time for breakfast, Juliana. But let's, we know global markets are still anxious about the Middle Eastern conflict and inflation. How are markets looking in the UK?
Not great. I heard you say red is the colour of one of the stock markets. That's the same way it is in the British capital. The all-share is down at intraday by 0.61%. The FTSE 100 down 2 at 0.71%. And the domestic market, the FTSE 250, that's down 0.15%. In the currencies market, the British pound also trailing against the US dollar by 0.16%, down 2 against the euro by 0.35%. And also the British pound at intraday is trading down against the Japanese yen by 0.12%, Laddie.
Right, red is the color right now. Thank you so much, Juliana, for the update. All right, let's take it to Europe now. See, the semiconductor trade war between the US and China is heating up once again as halters with DW in Berlin has been following the latest development. So, Lars, what can you tell us about the latest chapter in this ongoing saga?
Yeah, hello, Ladi. Thanks for having me. Well, it has been a busy 2 days for the chip sector with lots of news. It all started Tuesday when the Biden administration introduced some new rules further curbing the export of advanced AI chips to China. Now, that would mostly be chips made by U.S. business giant NVIDIA, including their latest GH200 super chip that is especially well suited for development of artificial intelligence applications. However, just a day later, NVIDIA, and in particular that GH200 superchip, made news again as the US company and Taiwanese electronics contractor Foxconn introduced plans for a joint venture. The two companies will work together to develop artificial intelligence systems to improve autonomous driving, certainly one of the big growth markets of the future. It is definitely also a direct hit at rival China, the current tech leader in autonomous driving.
What does that mean for NVIDIA's business?
Well, it looks like NVIDIA will be doing just fine because in addition to this new factory, or possibly even new factories, if indeed other projects with Foxconn will follow, the US government has also thrown the company sort of a lifeline. Authorities in Washington said that they are open to the semiconductor industry's input for finding ways to keep sending AI chips to China, if that is specifically for small and medium-sized systems. Now, that's an interesting move, and it suggests that the rules in Washington were indeed designed to curtail China's ability to exploit American chips to build massive supercomputers, machines that can be used to create technologies similar to OpenAI's ChatGPT, or even supercomputers that could be used for military purposes. Meanwhile, it seems they're not trying to go after broad consumer applications. I guess for NVIDIA, and also to a smaller degree to Intel and AMD, by the way, that means that some carefully constructed chips can be sold to China, but maybe the most powerful chips can't.
Major markets. Now, what are investors looking at in today's market in Europe?
Well, unsurprisingly, the situation in the Middle East is still a dominating factor on the mood of everyone, investors included. Generally, these past days, investors have been risk-averse and they're following developments there in the region. Obviously now with visits by US President Biden, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Britain's Rishi Sunak, and some others, a lot is pointing toward de-escalation, but no one knows how the war between Israel and the Hamas will develop and how it will affect, among other things, the oil market. Also, later today, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will give an update on U.S. monetary policies. Some people fear that he may strike a hawkish tone after recent data pointing to strength in the U.S. economy.
All right, thanks for the update. There's Lars Holter right there in Berlin. I guess it's risk-off sentiment right now. Let's get a check on oil markets now. So oil prices fell about 2% as United States eased sanctions on Venezuela to allow more oil flow globally, but fears that Israel's military campaign in Gaza may escalate to regional conflict kept a lid on losses. Brent crude futures for December were down by $1.80. Cents, 1.97% down to $89.70 a barrel. While US WTI futures for November, which expires on Friday, stood at $86.77 per barrel. The more active December WTI contract fell 1.6%, about $1.38 to $85.89 a barrel. And long queues for premium motor spirit, popularly called petrol, are beginning to resurface at filling stations in Lagos and other locations. Economist with financial derivatives company, Mr. Clement Igbanogo, who's a guest on Business Morning Show, believes that the cause is lack of access to forex supply by private PMS suppliers. Take a listen. All right. Well, I guess we'll try and get that track later on. But we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head on to the commodities market update. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Well, let's get a sense of why the queues are resurfacing in Lagos and other parts. Take a listen.
Managing director was saying the reason why they returned as the sole importer is because the private players could not access forests, but they can create, in his word, we can create forests. And for me, it's not a good thing for NNPC to be the only organization that can create forests for the economy. And when he made that comment, market has already started reading into it that, oh, that means that we are not going to have that kind of large supply as we're expecting, that given the fact that private players are given a license, that is going to increase supply in the petrol space. We have celebrated policy announcements, but we also need to see the policy impact. But you can't see all of this in it if we are not clear. The issue of transparency and deliverability of whatever government is saying they're going to do, because we're not seeing that consistency in all of those pronouncements.
All right, let's hope this field cues don't last. Now, let's get a check on the poultry market. Now, we see the turkey, price of turkey has increased by 60% in 2023 and is currently trading at 5,300 naira per kilogram, up from 3,300 naira per kilogram. Let's get a sense why this is happening. Joining me is Daniela Mobodede, analyst, financial derivatives company. Great to have you on the show, Daniela.
Good afternoon, Ladi. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Good afternoon. So what is responsible for this increase now? And do you see another surge as the Christmas season approaches?
Yes, so the major reason for this increase in the price of turkey is actually the high level of demand compared to supply. So as we all know, turkey is highly demanded during festive seasons, sometimes during Easter, and as globally, Thanksgiving Day, which is celebrated in so many parts of the world, is even coming up, and then Christmas also coming up in December. So there's also, like market speculations. So turkey, some turkey sellers or suppliers or marketers will try to capitalize on this and increase the prices of turkeys because they are anticipating increased sales. So yes, definitely there's going to be like an further upward pressure on turkey by the end of the year in December. I'd even advise anyone to even place their orders early or make their purchases to avoid that spike at that peak during the Christmas season. But then the exact extent as to which the price would increase would actually depend on the market sentiments at that time of the year. There are also other factors that affect the price of turkey, inflation, because turkey is actually imported into the country. So because of the high demand, and then it will increase import cost and therefore feed into like the retail prices of turkey here in the country. Inflation currently, the MBS just released the inflation report. We've seen food inflation increase to over 30%, a record high. So that implies high price of goods and services as well as food prices, and turkey is no exemption. There's also increase in cost of production. A lot goes into rearing, or rather producing poultry production, cost, livestock feed, labor cost, energy cost, and all of that. So yeah, we're most likely going to see, we should expect the price of turkey to be elevated to the end of the year.
All right, I guess we need a futures trade for this market. Given the recent substantial price surge in maize and sorghum, which is crucial, ingredients for livestock feed, how would this impact other poultry products?
Yeah, so the thing is that these grains are like the primary ingredients used to make livestock feeds, and livestock feeds constitute almost, or if not even up to 70% of total cost of production for poultry farming. So what most of these farmers are most likely going to do is to pass on this increased cost of production to consumers in form of high prices. For some of them, if the rise in price is even too high, they might even end up reducing their production or even exiting the poultry industry if they are not able to break even. And then at the end of the day, it's going to have a ripple effect. You see that some consumers would even become more price sensitive. They must start switching to other alternative affordable sources of protein. It's going to affect household budgets. There's going to be maybe a change in their consumption patterns and general spending on food and groceries.
And definitely, consumers are really squeezed at this time. Are there other cheaper alternatives?
Yeah, so even with the rise in the price of poultry, you find out that something like chicken is relatively budget friendly. compared to turkey, and even maybe compared to some other red meat. Then there's eggs. Eggs are like very affordable and they are quite versatile. And then for even people that are very health conscious, they can even consider other plant-based protein like beans, peas, legumes. And what some people don't even know is that some dairy products like milk, cheese, and yogurt, they are very rich in protein. And we also have fish, canned fish products, tuna and sardines. Those are actually alternatives that could be and should be explored.
Right, time to explore cheaper alternatives. Thank you so much, Daniela Omobodede, analyst, financial derivatives company. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ladi. Thank you.
Let's get a check on all the news now. See, South Africa's consumer price inflation has risen from 4.8% in August to 5.4% in September. So according to latest data from Statistics South Africa, this increase is within the South African Reserve Bank's target range of between 3% and 6%. Take a listen.
PI increased by 0.6% between August and September, of which 0.4% was contributed by transport. The fuel index increased for a second consecutive month, rising by 7.6% between August and September. The price of inland 95-octane petrol hit a 13-month high of 24.54 Rand in September. After 3 consecutive months in negative territory, annual fuel inflation jumped from negative 11.7% in August to a positive 1.5% in September. After cooling for the past 5 months, the annual rate for food and non-alcoholic beverages inched higher to 8.1% from 8% in August. Meat, fish, oils and fats, fruit and non-alcoholic beverages all registered higher annual rates in September. Lower rates were recorded for bread and cereals, sugar, sweets and desserts, vegetables, and milk, eggs and cheese. Meat prices increased on average by 0.6% between August and September, pushing the annual rate up to 3.8%. Poultry-related products experienced some upward price movements in September as producers started to cull birds in response to the outbreak of avian flu. For example, fresh whole chicken was up 2.2% between August and September. Non-IQF frozen chicken portions increased by 1.9% and eggs by 0.3%. Inflation for bread and cereals eased for a 5th straight month, reaching 9.2% in September. Lower annual rates were recorded for most products in this group. Rice, for example, saw its rate slow to 18.6% from 19.8% in August.
And to other stories now. Military rulers in Gabon have threatened to arrest the heads of businesses who have collected money for work that was not performed, while ordering the resumption of work at utility and construction sites after years of abandonment. Gabon's military-appointed prime minister told state TV that the junta-led government will ask contractors who abandoned work after collecting money to resume their projects or face arrest. And Kenyans might have to brace for higher fares as public transport players respond to the rising fuel prices. Taxi-hailing firm Bolt has adjusted its fares following the recent review by the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority. The new charges will see fares increase across all bands in Nairobi. This will see the base fare ranging from 70 shillings to 100 shillings across the country, based on border and XL categories. And that's the show today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, you can watch us again on our YouTube channel. Just flip over to YouTube, search for Channels Television, and click on videos. You can watch all our production. You can also visit www.channelstv.com. From me and the team right here in Lagos HQ, it's bye for now.